morning, here we are down at Point Nepean, Fort Nepean on the Mornington Peninsula, and we're at the old quarantine station. We're going to walk down to the Fort Nepean. It's about a 7-8 kilometre walk one way. It's currently 10 degrees. It feels like temperature about 1.2 degrees. The ocean, the bay is just there, which we'll have a bit of a look at later on. Basically, a quick summary here is saying the quarantine station was established around about 1840, 1845. These huts were starting to be built. In 1852, establishment of the quarantine station arrival. 1852, a cemetery was established here. 1854, a temporary hospital. 1855, Nepean Cemetery again. 1858, 5 two-storey stone hospital blocks with 2 separate kitchens for 500 people was built. 1859, the pier was completed. 1874, the telegraph link to Melbourne by Queenscliff. 1882, Victorian military forces started defence construction at Point Nepean. 1899, major building works including a disinfection complex with 2 autoclave in Australia transfer quarantine services to the Commonwealth of Australia. 1912, record 1,295 passengers quarantined from one ship. 1918 to 1919, influenza epidemic resulted in 128,000 travellers, examined mostly Australian soldiers returning from the First World War. And 1952, Army Officer Cadet School was established. 1978, quarantine station closed with only 12 people quarantined between 1954 and 1967. In 1988, Australian Army School of Army Health replaces Officer Cadet School. 1998, the Army relocates. In 1999, temporary accommodation for Kosovo refugees. And here we are at the quarantine station. You can see the Sorrento to Queenscliff ferry out there. Another Queenscliff Sorrento ferry. Let's go check out one of these buildings, the quarantine station. There you are, here's the Royal Code. Section 45(1) of all persons ordered in the quarantine and for the purposes may be retained on board the vessel or in a quarantine station and for release in accordance with this Act or regulation, and while so detained shall be subject to the regulations relating to the performance of quarantine and the government of quarantine station. No person ordered into quarantine shall commit any breach of the regulations regulating the performance of a quarantine station, penalty $200. There we go, that's quite relevant in today's world as well. So it's freezing cold outside, about probably 1.2 degrees as I said before, and it's actually quite warm in here, so it does have good insulation. I imagine that's more modern day stuff, but here we are, a quarantine building. The hospital and morgue area of the quarantine station. My original plan was to bring the bike down here and actually ride around the point. I thought due to the high winds today, 40-50 kilometre an hour winds up to 60 gusts, we were on the side of caution. But what I'm noticing as we walk around is actually quite sheltered from the wind. So if you're watching this video with intent to come down here to Point Nepean and it's windy, bring your bike, plenty of shelter.
So like the board.
Yeah, get off at the very end.
Oh, the last spot.
Yeah.
Last stop. All right. Okay.
Okay.
Right, Gunner's Cottage. So when the gunners would finish work in the afternoon or evening, this is where they come back and hang out, like the old barracks. So we're just here at the moment. We're going to backtrack up here and continue on up to the top there. Not a bad map. It tells you the time that it should take you. And I must say they really built houses very solid back in the 1800s. It's a really solid house. And look at the history there. So Werribee Encampment, 1861, Queenscliff Volunteers. And clearly military uniforms have come of age. The bayonets there. The old musket rifles. This is a newspaper from the Argus, Melbourne, Victoria, Saturday 20th of May, 1854. Let's call it an observation point. We're at the mouth of Port Phillip Bay. You can see the shipping, start of the shipping channels over there. We have a ship coming in right now. And that there is the mouth and entry to Port Phillip Bay. It's actually 3.2 kilometres wide. We're going to push up along those hills up there to get to the point there. Melbourne City. Wonderful place to visit down here. And there's the ocean, Bass Strait. Harold Edward Holt from the Liberal Party was the 17th Prime Minister of Australia. Harold Edward Holt from the Liberal Party was the 17th Prime Minister of Australia. On the 17th of December 1967, the Prime Minister was swimming down there and never surfaced from his swim, presumably lost and drowned at sea in the Bass Strait off the southern part of Australia. Educated in Sydney, born in Stanmore, went to Melbourne University. He was the leader of the Liberal Party and took office to be the 17th Prime Minister of Australia. .65 kilometres after we started the walk from the quarantine station, we're starting to see the first impressions of the fort. At the entrance to Eagle's Nest, there we have the ocean, Bass Strait, the point, and the entry to Port Phillip Bay with Melbourne City roughly about 70 kilometres that way. Obviously this radar tower wasn't here in 1800, 1900, or World War I or World War II, but it's a modern day radar tower to aid navigation and a relay for the Melbourne Harbour Control Tower. And from up here you can see the 2 points of entry to the bay. There, and Queenscliff in the Bellarine of Geelong, just over the other side. Well, one thing of note is that gunnery points, observation points haven't really changed over the years. They're still about the same size, sort of width. Now we have some camouflage netting down there, maybe a couple of sandbags up there to rest your rifle mount on. Still pretty much the same. Incoming mortar round, take cover! Well, here we are at Pierce's Barracks. Not sure if that's a bed or something else. Might have a tomb actually. Pierce Barracks, well, at least they didn't have very far to walk to man their post. Homecoming parade. I must say, as well as checking out the history of the World War I and World War II fort, there is good scenic views all around this place. Certainly worth coming. Today is a not so good Melbourne day. It is about 9-10 degrees. It feels like temperature is about 1 or 2 degrees. The wind's howling. And there's still quite a few people down here, so I imagine in the summer months or the warmer months it'll be pretty packed out. So the old heads, toilet, showers. Obviously no doubt the parade ground. That wonderful view over there, the two Queenscliff ferries about to pass each other. Looking like a couple of ships passing side by side. And 7.29 kilometres from the quarantine station, we're at the base of Fort Nepean. The Southern Ocean and Bass Strait there, and the Port Phillip Bay just to the right. Up we go. We're now in the gun emplacement and tunnels area. This central passage and tunnels links the gun emplacement and provides access to the shell lifts and lower level magazines. Weapon storage, arms racks. These racks were held for soldiers' rifles when they were not on duty in the fort. Obviously some kind of little recreation area maybe. Shells from the 380 pounders, 9.2 inch guns. And we're out here at Fort Nepean on the parade ground. Quite a small parade ground. A couple of old guns there. The first shots.
Everything must be in tip-top working order. When on gun crew duty, for safety, we change out our uniform into white overalls. Other safety measures like wearing rubber-soled shoes instead of our hot-mouth boots, rifles left off the rack in the shifting lobby, pockets are emptied with metal and matches before entering the magazines. This is to make sure we avoid any sparks of any kind. These gun emplacements can be dangerous. One spark, and there'd be an explosion so loud that even the boys in Queenscliff would see and hear it. The small lamp area here, in the wall, is where we put our kerosene lamp. It's separated with thick glass. Any spark will flame near the cordo charges, and you'd be blind to human car.
It's on it. Okay?
I'm sure the video will pull it up, but we'll have a look. We'll just use the photograph camera option on the Samsung S22 here. It's actually And that's it from the top of Fort Nepean, from the bottom to the top. 8.18 kilometres after we started at the quarantine station car park. Been on the move for 3 hours and 3 minutes. And now we're going to head back along the same route. Certainly worth coming along. Up here in the open pass, it's certainly windy, so I wouldn't recommend riding your bike on a windy day unless you want to do some real windy riding. But up until the peak of the hill, it's quite covered. And although it's blowing a gale at the moment, 30-40 kilometre winds at the moment, it's quite covered up, and you wouldn't get much wind resistance. So from Port Phillip Bay to the north, the Southern Ocean and Bass Strait, into our friends in Tasmania, including my cousin Mark Bailey and Bernie. This has been a tour of Fort Nepean, at Port Nepean, the quarantine station. I'll certainly come back and tour this place again. Some wonderful, wonderful scenery. And certainly worth it. If you do watch this video, let me know where you're from, what your thoughts are, and obviously give it a like. Alright, you thought you heard the end of it, but no. So on the way back to Gunner's Cottage, there's a roadway, or there's an off the beaten pathway, which along this path here you've got good views of the Port Phillip Bay. Path is all sand so far, but quite easy, bit hilly, but great views. Track back to Gunner's Cottage, across another little fort. Oh, hi, how you going? So, we're on the track back to Gunner's Cottage, and we come across this other fort as well. And it has wonderful views of Port Phillip Bay, on the edge of the bay. Certainly worth going off the beaten track I should say. I'm disappointed at the amount of people that would continue on the road service. This is an adventure for the brave. Do it, you won't regret it. Alright, I'm heading down here. See you guys.